All right, everybody, we're here. We're going to do a quick impromptu ad hoc video about types. Taylor and I were just sitting here talking about how stupid all this shit really is at the end of the day. So I created a type chart that kind of just breaks everything down into their respective little boxes. If you've heard me rant on enough, the idea is that we want to classify what these functions are within different systems, within different types. So I've categorized information for everybody to be able to view and kind of figure out maybe what type they are and what fucked up system they are. But the real question that I get most of the time on my other channel is, why the fuck does my type change every 5 fucking seconds? And this is where I want to sort all this out because everybody gets so damn confused. Am I INFJ or am I INFP? Taylor, can you put the baby face on? This is what it looks like to me. So this is the depiction of what I see on my channel. Oh, what's my type? Oh my God. Oh my God, I don't know my type. Like, I'm not a special snowflake anymore because I'm not INFJ. What do I do? Anyway, that is where we're at with this.
Get the fuck over it.
Yeah, get the fuck over it. You're who gives a shit what letters you are? If you're so sensitive to worry about your identity and what type you are, then you're probably going to typology for the reasons that most people go to typology, is to feel special. But here's the facts. Here's the things that I've broken down, and I've taken these from the sources. So of course I may have paraphrased something, so it may not be fucking perfect, but this is going to give you the general consensus of what most people agree on within these different taxonomies. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. And we're going to.
This is the Rosetta Stone. So if you talk to, I don't know if you're going to link it in the comments, but you never have to ask again, hey, what's the difference? And I'm guilty of it too.
So it is linked in the comments, so you will be able to look at that. It's also in the description, so you can't miss it. There's 2 links, so you're not so stupid where you're going to overlook it, but it's right here. All right, so the different taxonomies we have are Socionics Model A, and we got some traditional MBTI. We got Dario Nardi. We got Talking with Famous People. We got BB and CS Joseph kind of share the same model. And then we got Objective Personality. We got Neo-Jungian Typology. We got Typevolution Taxonomy. And we got the rest of you dumb fucks on the internet. All right, so we're going to go through each one of these, and not every detail, but we want to compare why you can't necessarily be the same type in every fucking system. You could, but you're most likely not, and here's why. All right, so let's look at this across the board. One of the biggest things that we have is Eric refers to extroverted thinking, for example, in the Talking with Famous People taxonomy here. He's referring to extroverted thinking as subjective logic, right? So he's capturing what he thinks that, okay, this subject has to determine what the point of utility is. And as a result, it's subjective thinking. Okay, so breaking time into subsections, order of operations, subjective evaluation on what a utility is. And you can kind of see that same thing about utility across the board here for TE. Fair enough. But there are a few differences as well. If we go over to Affective Personality, it's all about tribe validation of facts, right? It's tribe validation. The tribe going, hey, look, it must be true because we all say it is, and therefore the tribe says, yes, it is, and therefore you believe it. And that may be true to if you categorize people who do that as TE, fine, you know, and that could be empirical because people see it as tribal. However, that doesn't mean all TE users are going to go with majority consensus. So there's a little bit of a controversy there. Now, here's where you start running into serious challenges. In Neo-Jungian typology, which is Eric Thor's typology, TE is less about utility. It's more about accrual of status, wealth, power, proving yourself, gathering influence, competitiveness, setting benchmarks, test of wills, pushing yourself against a situation. Okay, so your TE, if you're TE in Eric Thor's taxonomy, then you're most likely not going to correlate very well as your leading function over here with Model A about factual accuracy, how-to instructions, efficiency and effectiveness, maximum utilization of resources, versus you'd probably align more with the Socionics version of active acquisition, control, organization of visible territory, or volitional sensing, or impact and having influence on the external world, or disciplining yourself to achieve an outcome, possible confrontation with reality to achieve outcomes, or power and influence over things and people. So there's a correlation here. Now, most of you people, dipshits or dingbats on the internet who fucking think that all these correlate because you're batshit crazy if you think all these fucking taxonomies actually line up. They're all kind of trying to target the same shit things. Sure, I get that. That makes fucking sense. But at the end of the day, what we're looking at is completely different taxonomies. Some of them correlate well with others. You can see objective data here, utility here, objective logic, defining scope, setting measurable goals somewhat correlates with these over here. Fair enough. But the miscorrelation or the lack of correlation is what creates the confusion. That is the fuck why your type changes every fucking 5 fucking seconds.
So I got a question on TE. Sometimes TE is considered the aggressive function, and sometimes SE is considered the aggressive function. How's that split among these?
So aggressive. So we have to define what we mean by aggressive. So if we look at Socionics, Socionics sees the accrual of things as TE for the use of their utility. So the only reason why I'm gathering acquisition or control is to maximize outcome versus having things or power influence over those things as an act in of itself. So you may see that desire to acquire from Socionics model ATE, but that aggression or that assertiveness isn't implied in Socionics TE at all. It's implied in, obviously, Eric Thor's, which was pulled right off his website, right? This came right off his website. It's about proving yourself and gathering influence and gathering power and competitive nature and pushing yourself against a situation and testing your will, which would be all associated with Socionics SE. So we can see a little bit of the
is he really the sole owner of aggressive TE?
No.
What about MBTI?
MBTI has a little bit of that too. So if we look at MBTI, it's turning procedures into standards, logical convincing of others. There's a lot more planning of programs. Now, I got rid of the MBTI and I stuck more to JCF, but MBTI goes as far as doing the rules and hierarchy and power, much like Thor's methodology is too. I kind of said traditional MBTI because that kind of came in MBTI way later about acquiring power and influence and being able to control and manipulate, micromanage and other people. But naturally, it is implied through MBTI because right here I put bulldozing as I should put that in quotes. So I'll go ahead and add those now. But bulldozing, like running people over, but staying 100% objective while doing so. So the TE in MBTI is associated with being ruthless and not having any feelings and remaining objective regardless of outcome. And it's much more about not giving a shit about whatever anybody else thinks and just running them over and bulldozing. And you'll see that term kind of thrown around the community for TE as far as MBTI goes. And I remember when I first interviewed with Jack a long time ago, it wasn't a diagnostic interview, but he goes, I don't think you're ENTJ. And I said, okay, well, this was back when I only knew MBTI. And I said, okay, well, explain to me why. And he said, you've just got too much pushiness to you. And he said, if you're ENTJ, that's really suppressed. It's a second dimension function in the ENTJ, and that assertiveness is not going to come out like that. You'll see much more of a dry, matter-of-fact, practical way. And then it further clarified when I talked to him about like the way people speak. When you listen to what he showed me as TE dominant users, the way they speak is pretty dry and matter of fact. And I said, that sounds really boring. And it does. It's like I always seek to have impact with the way that I speak. And he said, well, that's more likely FE valuing. And this was before a diagnostic interview. So this is what really started splitting my mind up into different taxonomies and going, okay, maybe these things are different. So as I explored that further, I was able to kind of break this down. And we can see Nardi here is very similar to MBTI in a lot of ways, but he does kind of remove the whole aggressive assertiveness aspect from it. He really sticks to empiricism and utility, and he kind of took that SE element out, and he kind of left it out of all cognitive process. And which I actually align with a lot. I'm one to say that someone who's aggressive doesn't necessarily mean they're SE valuing in Socionics, because the hood I lived in, everyone was aggressive. It was like the nature of the beast, everyone. And I'm not going to go around and saying all those people valued SE or all those people were SE egos. I think there's a lot of things that contribute to an aggressive nature. I think it's the amount of assertiveness one can put and do it with control and the ability to control it situationally or throughout time, which is dimensionality and Socionics. So But Nardi removed that from his system, so he doesn't really have a lot of that assertiveness in here. He has pretty interesting definitions on these things, more aligned with MBTI, but more filtered. And I think he did this with neuroscience and tried to correlate cognitive function with that. But you can see some differences here.
And we do appreciate his use of science.
Definitely. There's that means you like TE. You're a TE user now. How does it feel?
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
Well, you better let me drive the spreadsheets then.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll switch it over to you. So
you take over the hammer. I'll take the.
So as we can see here, we can look at extroverted sensing. This is a big difference. This is not the biggest difference between the systems, but it's a big one because, like I said, with the Socionics, we got the power, the assertiveness. It's called force as a shorthand in Socionics, Model A. Its code name or nickname or type name is force. It's the ability to apply force to your outside objects or outside circumstances to make things happen or move with your will. And that's the idea of extroverted sensing in Socionics. Now, it doesn't contradict the MBTI definition per se, right? In order to know how to move things, you've got to be aware of things. That makes sense. But they're defining something entirely different here. So what extroverted sensing is in these other cognitive functions is sensory experience and touch with present direct environment, use of all five senses, recall of senses from memory, right? So it's actually memory recall of senses. So how well can you remember senses? Seeking indisputable data, which could be kind of correlated with, okay, external empiricism, which could be more correlated with Socionics TE here.
So that's why we love Nardi.
Right. He takes that aspect out of it again. Seeking sensory stimulation from the outside world. Okay, one who wants to interact with the world outside of them. That makes perfect sense. And becoming one with the activity you're doing, kind of entering a flow state. So we all know from experience that we go into these flow states with some area in which we feel that we're optimized. For Taylor and I, it tends to be areas of crisis or conflict, which is really unfortunate for us because it does get us in trouble, but it's when I feel most alive. So there's these aspects which these other ones are talking about, okay, well, you're using extroverted sensing when you're getting into that flow state. Now, Nardi kind of spreads the flow state out with every type, and he talks about Zen mode in many different types and many different cognitive functions. So as we move down, this is where things start getting really, really, really different because sure, extroverted sensing and talking with famous people is about taking action, which is more correlated with Socionics Model A. Less action in Dario Nardi's thing. Sure, it's pleasure seeking, risk taking, what we're doing right now, but it's not as driven toward action. It's not a direct contradiction, but it's not as captured in that taxonomy. Now, when we move over in Dave's personality or objective personality system, Dave's superpowers, it's gathering objective facts. Okay, the collection of facts. So it's gathering information, which is no longer just sensory information, but it's a perceivable facts. Okay, not entirely contradictory, but now we're talking about something else, your ability to gather facts. In Thor's system, it's gathering facts. Okay, it's compare and contrast to past information, which would be more associated with SI in these other models. Action, experience, and practical matters. Bravery, adventurous, active, and energetic. Okay, so now bravery is associated with extroverted sensing and Thor's typology. Okay, so we have these unique taxonomies. Now, SI is where things get kind of muddied up. So when we look at SI, we see like in Socionics is how the environment affects your physical state. It's the awareness of how objects interact with each other, particularly your own senses. Okay, so you're actually looking at things for their aesthetic appeal, the way they appear, their harmony seeking, their balance focused, creating balanced. Okay, rest. Like, how do I rest? My body's tired. I need to take care of this unit. Pleasantness, right? Making sure things are pleasant. Passive once equilibrium is achieved. So what this means is that once they actually achieve equilibrium and the balance and all things become peaceful, they actually hit inactivity. Whereas SE people keep going in activity and keep wanting to change things regardless of how chill it is, keep changing shit. So SI is like, oh, everything's good, now I can relax. Whereas SE is like, oh, fucking everything's good, but I don't like complacency. Let's move. Let's do something. We got to get something done. We got to do something. There's this activity drive. Homeostasis and creating balance around the individual in relation to the outside sensory experience. Okay, that's socionics. When you start going over into introverted sensing into, say, MBTI, it's focused on sensory experiences of comparing present and past information. So it's a comparison between the present and past, which was kind of captured in one of the other taxonomies talking about being aware of present and past information in the extroverted sensing model. Okay, so recalling previous experiences, including specific data and internal reactions. So Eric, of Talking with Famous People, specifically states that people who are bad with SI cannot capture details of any story. They tend to forget details as if it has to do with memory. So he's very associated with SI being memory. You can't tell a story if you don't have a memory. So they tend to leave out stories and tell the point of the story versus the actual story itself. The introverted sensing aspect also in MBTI is repeating process and resistance to change. Okay, that can be associated a little bit with the Socionics SI, right? Not wanting to change things because it would create disruption, but not all resistance to change. If the change creates balance, then it's less resistance to change. There's also the traditional side, attempts to maintain tradition. I think that was pulled out of someone's ass crack, personally. I think that anybody as a millennial or further in this generation is much more about making things being not traditional. We're in a day and age where it's less about tradition. Sure, some people appreciate tradition more than others, but it's not categorized as SI anymore. I think that's an old terminology that's not as effective, which Nardi corrects, I think, very clearly.
But isn't that how every generation is when they're that age? I mean, every generation is going to revolutionize the problems of their parents.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a millennial thing or if it's just hey, you hit your 20s.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. So every teen is SE, and then when they actually become an adult, their type changes. Yeah. So
what happened to me?
I don't know what the fuck happened to you. That's a good question, though. So there's that. And conservation of energy, resourcefulness, and of maximum efficiency. Now here we get into a problem, because TE is more associated with efficiency in Model A. And we're talking about efficiency now in extroverted or introverted sensing in MBTI. Maximum efficiency and resourcefulness is introverted sensing in MBTI. So a lot of people ask me, well, how are you ENTJ? You're intuitive in one system and sensing in another. And the reality is, well, I'm not this. So I have to be the opposite because it's a dichotomy. If I'm not this, then I'm that. And I don't really dive deep into the functions of MBTI because they're not consistent to me anymore. It's not that I hate MBTI. I think it has its place if you're using dichotomies. E over I, N over S, F over T, or J over P. I think that's fine. But when you start getting into cognitive process, I really think it starts to lose its oomph. So, all right, everybody, hold on. Let's take a short break and look at Taylor on a bike. While he's on a bike, make sure that you're subscribing. If you like this content, you want to keep this content going, you want to know that what your real type is and stop fucking around and losing your standard idea of yourself and losing your identity every 5 fucking seconds and really get a grip on your type, I think you should fucking pull this sheet up. It's in the description. Subscribe while you're down there, like the video, and then get back on this video and figure out what fucking type you are. If you suck at it, we're going to tell you after time anyway.
And yeah, I mean, we'll help as time allows. So drop questions in the comments or whatever. But something that would be useful if you're trying to figure it out is look at the whole system.
Yep.
And figure out which entire system you think is most sound, because at the end of the day, there's enough subjectivity to the whole topic that you can't really prove either one right. Although Dario Nardi's got some science. So Socionics seems to be holding true, in my opinion, though.
Socionics got some math behind it, which is kind of interesting and above my pay grade, but certainly interesting nonetheless. So when we look at these taxonomies, it doesn't matter what taxonomy you're choosing. You're trying to categorize different aspects of yourself. So pick a damn system and figure out what you are in that system. Who cares? Why do you have to? You don't have to intermingle all this shit if you don't want to. If you can try, but if you try, guess what category you're going to wind up? This category right here. Other dumb fucks on the internet. Don't fall in this category. Well, actually, you're probably already in this category because you're trying to make sense of all of it. So I can't really blame you for being a dumb fuck. So just open the sheet, figure it out, make it easy on yourself. It's a work in progress, which means I'm adding shit to it every day. And if one of the authors comes to me and goes, that's not what I defined it as, I'll go fix this shit. I'm not attached to this. I just want to help you fuckers out there figure out and stop asking me the same question. Well, what does what mean? It's right here. Just click the damn sheet. So
we've all been there, and this is how through it.
Yeah. So I took a lot of time trying to get the author's words and throw them in here without writing the whole damn book. So once we get past the sensing and we start realizing that there's some big differences here, right? So we have this aesthetics, actually attentiveness to the physical environment and in respect to how it affects you is more of the socionics aspect of SI, where SI in every other system is not about attentiveness to the environment. So yeah, there's not any other system other than Socionics. SI is about attentiveness to the environment in which it relates to you. Whereas everybody else classifies it as subjective, which the entire fucking typology system, every single one of them are subjective. I don't believe in objective typology in general. I don't think anything can truly be 100% objective. So
in psychology, I mean,
yes,
you just really can't do it.
Right. You can't measure it, can't do anything. And I'm fine with that. I love this system for what it is. I love these systems. They're interesting to me. I studied Eric's Talking with Famous People taxonomy. Very fascinating. I like how he put it together.
Which, by the way, he just passed 5,000 subscribers. So congratulations to Eric and Talking with Famous People.
Yeah, congratulations to him. Good job. I know it's been a long time coming. And if you're watching this video, go ahead and subscribe to Talking with Famous People. If you want some funny shit daily, multiple times a day, however many times a day, and some random ass farm animals.
Yeah.
All right. So scrolling down, you'll see any here. And any is pretty consistent across the board. Most people have the same idea of any. There's not a lot of anything that's really a big discrepancy that stands out. It's pretty consistent. It's ideas, but there are a few things that are inconsistent, but very minimal. So any in MBTI is about positivity, which I think is okay, it's fair. And in MBTI, yes, the ENFP is this positive, outgoing person and often classified as ADHD or whatever, ADD, and all over the place. But in other systems, that's not necessarily the case. You see that in C.S. Joseph systems, it's what might be openness to possibilities, metaphysical awareness. That's all the same. Gathering concepts is any in objective personality. So whereas in neo-Jungian typology, it's gathering ideas, concepts, same thing, connecting patterns, but predicting the future is actually extroverted intuition and neo-Jungian typology. Spotting potential and being open.
That's a hefty claim.
Yeah. Predicting the future. I might have paraphrased that. So, but that's what it said in a nutshell to me. That's what it said to me. So, whereas in typevolution over here, it looks like that the novelty and concepts draws ideas from many different sources, connecting many different sources together to come up with one idea. So it's very singular focused. And in Socionics, it's discovered information. And it's also, discovered information, which actually in Talking with Famous People taxonomy, in I is discovered knowledge, whereas in E is discovered knowledge in Socionics Model A. So I don't fucking know. It's all over.
So it's the consistent, it seems like the consistent theme throughout all of them, though, is that extroverted intuition is expanding from the present forward.
Yes,
it's going that way.
I think that is the one function that pretty much every taxonomy agrees with. It's like there's a few variances, but I think they're all attempting to describe the same thing. It's the one thing that I can say there is almost 100% crossover. I think they, except for objective personality. objective personality is just about gathering concepts or concepts of instead of facts. But
still, I mean, a concept is a potentiality, so
right,
it could just be phrasing, really. I
no,
don't know.
mean,
Maybe it's wrong. I'm not super familiar with the whole system.
I think it's like even a concept of a model, which could be considered like a TI piece of information in socionics. It's just in general your collection of information that's given like through models or concepts of things versus actual empirical data, as far as I understand it. I do like objective personality. I like what it represents. It's a great personal development tool, but it is very different from the rest of the Jungian based taxonomies. So down here we have NI. Focus on a situation's development over time, amount of time required for particular activity. So it's awareness of time. Now, if we look up, Nardi actually classifies amount of time to completion under TE, not NI. Okay. So amount of time to completion and amount of time required for particular activity, they're different functions, different IMEs or whatever you want to call it, depending on which taxonomy you're using. So
what does IME stand for?
Information metabolism element.
Hmm.
So I think the interesting thing about socionics is it unlike the other taxonomies, which are just attempting to describe a cognitive process, the IMEs are actually breaking the physical and metaphysical world into 8 different components in which your brain metabolizes. So it incorporates, unlike any other system, maybe talking with famous people taxonomy, but unlike any other system, it actually is digesting information and including information metabolism where the rest of them don't. None of the other systems include information metabolism. Typevolution does because they actually take taxonomies too, or she does or whatever. But in general, other dumb fucks on the internet try to make it all make sense. All this. So they can play this game, but to me, it's a endless, pointless battle. I mean, who are you really trying to convince? You know, in fact, I'm convinced that the other dumb fucks on the internet think they're so special that they actually have to create their own system to define how special fucking snowflake they actually are, because none of these other fucking functions fucking fit. That's what I think. So moving down to FE. FE's pretty big difference. FE and FI are pretty big across the board. There's differences in them. FE in socionics is about emotional states of self, of your own emotions, as well as others' emotions. Being aware of your emotions and others' emotions is a big part of FE. It's emotions in general. Whereas FI is associated MBTI as emotions and your deep feelings. That's actually categorized as FE. And Socionics Model A. Evaluation according to a social element, clear reference to the object without the subject, self-expression and communication are all part of extroverted ethics in Socionics Model A. Whereas in traditional MBTI, it's about group harmony and saving your relationships and maintenance of your relations, which is FI actually in Socionics. So personal disclosure, appropriate behavior and act accordingly is all FE in MBTI. That is not FE in Socionics. Like rejection of personal standpoint, that could be considered FE, but identification of group norms, okay, that's FE. So there's a little bit of correlation here. So if I take these particular cells, right, and I take, say, group harmony, save the relationship, maintenance of relations, and let's say appropriate behavior, internalization of cultural values, rejection of personal standpoint, educate others on personal behaviors, easy and harmonious relations. These are all aspects. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. These right here are all FI in Socionics. And I pulled this right from MBTI's written documentation, besides save the relationship. That's my own words. But all the other stuff, that was pulled from MBTI's documentation. So when we look at FI in Socionics, it is about relations between you and someone else. So it's the sense of subjective distance between two people. How close are these people? How far are these people? And convey your emotions and being aware of emotions in terms of how one is affected by something, not on this physical sense, like this makes me uncomfortable, but on the I don't like this. This doesn't feel good to me. Whereas FE people are more like that shit sucks. This situation sucks. They're explaining the outside of the subject. They're talking about the situation. And emotional attraction, repulsion. static states of fields between people, limiting emotional interactions by how those people make you feel, recognition of an innate affinity between parties. So you're still recognizing things, but it's the bond between two people. It's much more about physical bonds. So it captures this relationship aspect, where introverted feeling in MBTI is about having some grand cause. Like you're a crusader of all morality, and all morality, if you don't have FI and MBTI, then you're not a moral person, is what it's implying. So you judge people based on how well they do what's right, their morals, their deep-seated emotions, their awareness of universal personal values, value all living things. That was written in MBTI documentation. They value all living things. Like, don't step on a fucking ant because it's living life. This is FI in the MBTI sense. And if we move on to the Thor side, he captures some of it. Purposeful, right? Having a purpose in life. What is your inner vision? What is it? Having a purpose, right? Whereas extroverted feeling in Thor typology is depth oriented, values oriented, and seeking meaning, right? Which meaning is done with NI and some other fucked up system. So all in all, I hope you all are seeing how this can be extremely fucking confusing for everybody. Taylor, you want to add anything?
No, nope.
So the sheet is available, everybody. Get on the damn sheet. Try to figure it out. If you want to add something, message me on Discord. If you can cite me the source of the author of who system it is and where you're getting that information. If you just send me information, I'm going to add it to other dumb fucks on the internet, because this is the category of information that doesn't go in one of these boxes. Or if you have a complete system, if you're smart enough, if you're knowledgeable enough to create your own fucking system, then I'll add you to the damn spreadsheet and I'll add your system to it. But do not try to convince me that this was not an MBTI documentation or this was not in Nardi's book. It is. I pulled it straight from his book. So.
And no ambiverts. You're not an ambivert.
No, you're not.
And you're not one type until you get angry, then you switch to another type.
Right. I'm a ENTP when I'm normal, but then I turn into an ENTJ because I'm pissed off. That's not how it works either. That's not how even the theory of personality types works. You don't switch personality types. This will be a lot easier if you just say fuck it and you just try to understand each one of its own like it's a project. I mean, I paid for the objective personality classes for months to learn how that system works. I went through all this shit to learn these different systems, but I respect each taxonomy as it is. And truthfully, I'm not fucking smart enough to come up with my own system. So instead, I just fucking categorize it for you dumb fucks, because I would be in this blue category along with you if I tried to create my own system. And I don't want to be another dumb fuck on the internet. So.
And that's where I lived for quite a while.
Right. Being a dumb fuck on the internet isn't all that bad. So anything else you want to add to this video, Taylor?
No, I don't.
Perfect. I think that covers it. Hope everybody gets a fucking thrill ride out of that shit. It'll be boring as fuck if you stare at it too long. If you're staring at that for more than 20 minutes, you probably need to go do something.
Oh no, they'll love it. They'll have a blast. Have a blast.
All right, so everybody watching this video, make sure you click that damn subscribe button, and so that way we can actually talk about real shit, such as why. Oh, you know what? Advice for teenage girls, or what guys mean when they say they want to go on a camping trip with you as a girl. Those are the topics that Taylor and I are much more interested in talking about.
We can help you solve these mysteries. We're old.
Next time on History's Mysteries. Check us out. Click that fucking subscribe button. See y'all next time.